Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there to see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
Making sense of the overwhelming wave of information means cutting through the noise to shine a light on the heart of the story and making room for new perspectives. True understanding means the ability to see events from more than one side. I'm Liu Xin, and this is The Point.
Now to join us to talk about President Trump's Wuhan lab theory and the latest U.S. intelligence report, I'm joined by Victor Gao Zhikai, Vice President of the Center for China and Globalization, from Philadelphia via Skype by Brendan Blackburn-Dwyer, President of Grasshopper Strategies, and again from Memphis, Tennessee, Josef Mahoney, Professor at East China Normal University. First of all, gentlemen, I want to show you this statement from the Office of the Director of the National Intelligence that says that the entire intelligence community of the U.S., quote, will continue to rigorously examine emerging information and intelligence to determine whether the outbreak began through contact with infected animals or if it was the result of an accident at the laboratory in Wuhan. But it concurs with the wide scientific consensus that the COVID-19 virus was not man-made or genetically modified. Victor, what do you make of this statement?
Allow me to say, to politicize intelligence or to presidentialize intelligence will be creating the biggest nightmare in the world, especially when the world is dealing with this coronavirus. I think politics need to be taken away out of intelligence, and I truly respect the quality of the intelligence in the United States when they say they see no sign of virus being man-made or man-interfered, for example. That should be the end of the story. But if political forces, Republicans, or the U.S. president personally get involved in changing the conclusion of the intelligence, this will be a major intervention. This will destroy the credibility of the intelligence, and this will bring disaster to the United States as well as people fighting coronavirus everywhere in the world. It's very, very unfortunate and very regrettable, to say the least.
Brendan, this report said the virus is not man-made or genetically modified, but he also says the intelligence community of the U.S. will keep looking if it is accidentally released from a Wuhan lab. This doesn't sound like a total exoneration of China to me. Am I wrong?
It's not a total exoneration of China. And we need to understand that while I share Victor's distaste for any true politicization of intelligence, that some of this is not politicization, because we have to understand that there's a difference between the scientific community saying this is not a man-made virus or a man-interfered virus. They're talking about that the virus at its core is not genetically modified. It was not made out of nothing. In that sense, they say it's a naturally occurring virus, similar to something like Ebola. But what the intelligence community is saying that they are going to continue to explore is whether a lab accident led to the general exposure of non-lab personnel and the general public to a potentially naturally occurring virus. That would be akin to a lab studying Ebola having an accident that it released Ebola on the general population. Now, again, I'm not saying that that's what's happened. I'm not making the accusation that's what went on in Wuhan. I think we need to give intelligence agencies the time to figure this out. We need to give everyone the time to figure this out. And I do think that President Trump has already tried to jump to a conclusion that is politically seemingly beneficial to him against the advice of his intelligence advisors. But we still need to understand that when the scientific community says it's not man-made, that doesn't mean that there wasn't a lab accident that led to widespread exposure.
All right, points taken. Professor Mahoney, Trump said in a response to this release of the intelligence report that he had seen evidence that the coronavirus emerged in a Wuhan lab, but then quickly backtracked somehow, adding that he was not allowed to share the intelligence and that his administration was examining multiple theories about the origin of the virus. Do you believe what Trump said?
To be frank, I don't. First, he does have the right, as the President of the United States, and on a number of occasions, he has the right to immediately declassify and to speak whatever he wants, whenever he wants. And, you know, I think, you know, him saying that he has proof is not something that we can trust. But at the same time, I would agree with the first comments, but I would say, you know, I don't think any of us are naive about the politicization of intelligence. We can go back and look at the politicization of intelligence that took place in the lead up of the American war in Iraq, the Second Gulf War, which you know, created a tragedy that continues to ripple across the Middle East, including in Syria today. You know, I don't think that Trump can be trusted on this. I think he's given us a lot of misleading statements before. I think he's even told us at a number of points that we can't trust the American government itself. He's alleged that there's a deep state at work trying to undermine him or undermine other American values. So, you know, I don't know who at this point believes that we can trust either him or the government, because he's undermined both.
Definitely, there's a lot of suspicion out there these days on both sides. Victor, a former U.S. intelligence official has described the Trump administration's repeated emphasis of the Wuhan lab theory as quote-unquote conclusion shopping, a term that was used to describe George Bush administration's shopping for so-called evidence of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Do you agree that this time around Trump is also resorting to conclusion shopping against China?
No, allow me to make several points. First of all, I don't think President Donald Trump is doing the correct thing to serve the best interest of the United States, the American people. He's probably trying to do whatever he can to help save the presidential election. And he does not have qualm or misgivings about whatever means he can resort to. And this creates a very dangerous situation now. Secondly, I understand the state of California and the state of New York and quite a number of other states in the United States are doing autopsies as we speak to see whether some of the deaths originally diagnosed as caused by flu last season was actually caused by COVID-19. And according to the already reported autopsy reports, the death happening in California on February the 7th was caused by coronavirus, and it would bring the first patient in California back to early January, if not back into December 2019. Let's give time and leisure to the state of California and state of New York to continue their autopsies and see what exactly happened in some of the states in the United States, whether coronavirus really broke out earlier than thought. And I personally will not be surprised by the end of the day that we may come upon evidence to show that coronavirus as a health problem existed in the United States even earlier than the first breakout of the coronavirus problem in Wuhan. I don't think anyone can fool the whole world all the time. And I don't think try to politicize information or intelligence and try to impose one's version of truth, no matter how faulty it is, onto the rest of the world can solve the problem. It will not serve the fundamental interest of the American people. And I think the closure of Fort Detrick military laboratory last year and the very suspicious e-cigarette vaping incident need to be investigated as thoroughly as possible to make sure that mankind does, by the end of the day, get to the real origin of the virus.
All right. Brandon, as more bad economic news coming out of the U.S. and more confirmed cases of the virus, do you think the Trump administration will double down on pursuing a conspiracy theory against China?
Well, let's just say that while I respect Victor, he is also grasping at a number of theories that are being classified by many in the mainstream media as conspiracy theories. So it's not just President Trump that's engaging in this, it's commentators across the world that are engaging in finding facts where there are none. It is clear that this was spreading in China earlier than reported. It was spreading in the United States earlier than acknowledged. It is clear that this goes back into 2019, farther than many thought previously sure. And so the reality is the world had more time to prepare than any nation in the world actually took, particularly the United States. Now let's get to the economic impact. The United States is looking at the largest contraction in GDP since the Great Recession, which is obvious considering that overnight we have gone from the lowest unemployment in history to one of the highest unemployments in history. You can't have an economy go through that and not contract. The question will be how quickly and safely can we get back to work? President Trump is trying to push people to work immediately. Mitch McConnell in the Senate is trying to push laws that would give liability shields to any company that actually required the workers to go back to work, even if it was unsafe for them to go back to work. This is because Republicans know that President Trump's only hope of winning re-election is if the economy comes roaring back, with every worker going back to work and every consumer going back to purchasing levels that were existing before COVID-19. That's a pipe dream by any standard, and it's unfortunately probably going to come at the cost of another second wave of COVID-19 infections. My hope is that we can find a way in middle ground to restart the economy, to get people back safely, but I'm not as optimistic as I'd like to be.
I would definitely hope the politicization around the virus will stop one day and relations will go back to where they're supposed to be, at least economically. I want to thank all of our guests, Brandon Blackburn-Dwyer, President of the Grasshopper Strategies, Victor Gao-Zhikai, Vice President of the Center for China and Globalization, and from Memphis, Josef Mahoney, Professor at East China Normal University. That's all from this edition of The Point. As always, follow us on Facebook and Twitter using the handle The Point with Alex. Download the CGTN app to watch our show, or go to YouTube and look for CGTN The Point. Thank you for watching.